Discover the amazing secrets of communities that transformed history. 7 touching stories revealed. Ellie stood behind a counter at Wally's diner, a chipped coffee mug cradled in her hand. The smell of grease lingered in the air, but her mind was elsewhere, filled with the weight of bills that seemed to multiply each month. As a single mother juggling 2 jobs, she often felt like she was swimming against a relentless current. Lucas, her 15-year-old son, was a bright spark, but even he could feel the suffocating grip of their financial struggles. Each evening, when she returned home from the office cleaning shift, she would find him slumped over textbooks in the dim light, a shadow of the ambitious boy he used to be. "Mom, can we talk?" His voice was small, almost hesitant, pulling her from her spiral of worry. Each word gripped her with a growing sense of dread. What new burden would he lay on her shoulders this time? "I found this. It's a diary that belonged to Grandpa." The mention of her father sent a burst of warmth mixed with cold anxiety through her. He had been a teacher, a champion for kids like Lucas, but he had also been gone far too soon, leaving behind an abyss too vast to fully comprehend. She watched Lucas thumb through the fragile pages, his eyes widening in wonder as the stories seemed to leap off the paper. But Ellie felt the flood of unspoken fears. Could a dusty diary really offer a solution? Her chest tightened at the thought of her own failures. Lucas deserved more than a mother who worked herself to the bone. She hesitated, fear gnawing at her resolve, as she recalled the bitter frictions between her father and a powerful school administrator who had clung to the status quo. Would pursuing this lead only deepen the scars left by her father's death? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The hope radiating from Lucas's discovery tugged against her weariness, igniting something long dormant inside her. Yet each potential step forward felt treacherously steep. Ellie recalled unresolved disputes. The chilling words from that old nemesis loomed like a storm cloud over her newfound ambitions. Wasn't it enough to provide the basics, a warm home, food on the table? Did she dare to extend her fight beyond survival, to create something lasting? As she walked through the town, the past began to resurface like echoes in the wind, reminding her of her father's tireless resolve. Could she reclaim that legacy while contending with the insidious remnants of his fight? Her determination sparked against paralyzing doubt, taunting her with nightmares of failure. Lucas deserved to dream beyond constraints, but what if her attempts only led to disappointment? Ellie's heart raced as she faced the impending showdown with the powerful adversary. Each day, a whirlwind of urgency built around her mission, leaving her feeling like a ship battered by relentless waves. Would Lucas find strength in her pursuit, or would he view her struggles as another burden on his shoulders? The question loomed heavy as she confronted the possibility of unraveling their fragile lives in the effort to weave new dreams. As the shadows of the past crept closer, Ellie felt the pressure mounting, threatening to crush her fragile resolve. The stakes had never been higher. Ellie's pulse quickened as she stepped inside Wally's diner for another shift, the familiar sound of sizzling grills and clinking plates wrapping around her like an old, worn blanket. However, today felt different. The diary filled with her father's stories had opened a floodgate of emotions that ebbed and flowed within her. She filled orders without truly seeing the customers. Instead, her mind teetered between the hope ignited by Lucas's discovery and the paralyzing fear that gripped her heart. She recalled her father's encouraging words, "Change starts with speaking out." Those words echoed in her mind, urging her toward a future she had almost forgotten to envision. When the lunchtime rush slowed, Ellie found a rare moment of quiet. She scanned the diner to ensure no one needed her, then retrieved a crumpled napkin and a pen from her apron pocket. The act of writing felt foreign, yet exhilarating. She was charting a course through the fog of uncertainty engulfing her. If only she could salvage her father's legacy while carving out a path for Lucas, a way to empower the future while battling the ghosts of the past. She jotted down fragments of ideas. Maybe she could start a community group that shared not just her father's story, but her own struggles navigating motherhood, work, and everything in between. But could she break through the apathy that often engulfed those around her? Would they even care? The words, "You don't have what it takes," echoed from years past, a statement that had once had power over her. A slow determination rose within, battling against the storm of doubt. That evening at home, she paced the small living room, her heart pounding as she shared the ideas with Lucas. His eyes lit up with enthusiasm, each word she spoke fluttering between hope and countless what-ifs. "Mom, that's brilliant. You could inspire people," he encouraged, a hint of the boy she knew surfacing through the layers of stress he carried. Yet each spark of ambition flickered dangerously close to the flame of fear. With memories of her father battling the system still fresh, she hesitated before plunging into action. Could she bear the backlash? The thought alone twisted her stomach. Lucas, sensing her trepidation, leaned in. "But Grandma always said he fought for what was right. You can too. You're just as strong as he was." His words ignited something in her, challenging her to shed the weight of her insecurities. This was more than just about a legacy. It was about teaching her son resilience, showing him how to fight for what truly mattered, not just for survival, but for a meaningful existence. As she pulled out the diary later that night, skimming the stories penned by her father, Ellie found not just a connection to him, but a roadmap of sorts. Each tale contained lessons learned, arguments fought, and ideas ignited. A montage of courage unfolded in her mind. Now the decision pressed heavily upon her. Confront the old nemesis who had once silenced her father, or keep the safety of silence she had clung to for so long. That night, standing at the edge of something greater than herself, Ellie felt the anticipation swell within. The spark of change ignited her spirit, but it came with a cost. She needed more than courage. She needed a plan, strategies to build momentum. As morning approached, thoughts swirled in her mind. She realized the time for hesitance was over. She would need allies, resources, and perhaps even training to foster genuine change. Tomorrow, after another demanding shift, she would start looking for support. The desire for a better life for Lucas pushed her to dive headfirst into the unknown waters of possibility. The moment loomed large, a defining point where her choices could ripple through generations to come. Would she have the strength to face the shadows of her past, or would it swallow her whole? Ellie's fingers trembled slightly as she wiped down the diner's countertop, the familiar motions now interlaced with a growing sense of purpose. The morning sunlight spilled through the windows, bathing the room in gold, illuminating both the dust motes and her newfound resolve. Just as she had promised herself, today would be different. Today would mark the beginning of a shift, not just for her, but for Lucas too. The morning rush began with the arrival of regulars, their cheerful banter setting a comfortable rhythm. But Ellie found herself calculating every interaction, mentally assessing how each customer might react to her next steps. The weight of her plan pressed upon her like an anchor, steering her thoughts toward the unfamiliar path of advocacy she envisioned. She was struck with the realization that she had spent too long in the shadows, watching her life unfold without taking action. As the orders poured in and the coffee brewed, Ellie conducted her own informal survey. She made small talk with her customers, gauging their openness to discussion. "Have you ever thought about how we could make things better in our community?" she ventured, testing the waters. Responses varied from polite nods to bewildered glances. The willingness to engage felt thin, yet beneath it lay a flicker of curiosity, even in the most unattentive faces. At break, she escaped outside, finding sanctuary in the fresh air. Every inhale tasted like freedom, but every exhale released remnants of doubt. She thought of her father, picturing him standing up for what he believed in, the respect he commanded from even those who opposed him. Could she muster that same courage? Her heart raced at the thought. She needed a plan that was both daring and strategic to transform the flicker of hope into a flame. That evening, she made her way to the local community center after her shift. It felt like a pilgrimage against her hesitation. Inside, a small, faded poster caught her eye, advertising a workshop on public speaking. The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, grappling with her own words, yet seeking to share a legacy. It was time to confront the idea of her voice being a tool. As she collected information, she mentally prepared for what she might face. Was she ready to frame her father's ideals, to breathe life into his beliefs through her narrative? With her fingers trembling on the sign-up sheet, she felt the pulse of uncertainty creep in once more. It would mean sharing not only her father's story, but her own struggles and decisions in raising Lucas. It was terrifying, yet liberating. Returning home, Ellie pored over the diary, highlighting passages that resonated with her burgeoning mission. Each story felt like a stepping stone laid out in front of her, guiding her toward action. Yet, as she pivoted mentally, the nagging voice of doubt lingered. What if speaking out brought backlash or stirred up old wounds? She had witnessed the toll activism took on her father. Something dark always accompanied the fight. "Remember," Lucas's voice echoed encouragingly in her mind. But it wasn't just a whisper, it was a challenge. By the time she lay in bed, she realized that the path ahead would be filled with both fear and exhilaration. Change demanded sacrifice. Yet she didn't want the shadows of her past, nor the ghost of her father's silence, to dictate her future or her son's. Tomorrow, she would boldly step into the workshop, transforming fear into momentum. She clenched her fists at her side, determination pulsating through her. But just as she was ready to drift into sleep, the phone buzzed on her bedside table. A message illuminated the screen, an unexpected text from her father's old friend, someone she hadn't spoken to in years, who had been part of the battles her father had fought against the very systems that haunted her. It read simply, "I know what you're planning. We need to talk." As her heart raced once more, Ellie knew she stood at the precipice of something monumental. But what awaited her on the other side could change everything. What revelations lay in store? Would this old connection offer support, or would it draw her deeper into the past she had tried to escape? Ellie paced her small kitchen, the untouched mug of coffee growing cold as she stared at her phone, contemplating the message that had disrupted her reach for clarity. Each tick of the clock echoed like a pulse in the quiet room. It felt surreal that this old connection to her father could appear at such a pivotal moment, bearing the potential to either guide her or entangle her further in a past she had long sought to redefine. Her mind raced through a torrent of memories and emotions, the laughter of her father at the dinner table, his impassioned speeches, the way he instilled a sense of justice in her from such an early age. The weight of his legacy pressed down heavily, burdening her with expectations and a daunting responsibility. She could almost hear him saying, "You have to do what's right, even if you're scared." Yet the fear she felt was palpable. What could his friend possibly want? Was he about to expose her plans to the world, turning her ambition into a spectacle of failure? She shut her eyes, trying to steady her thoughts, but doubt gnawed at her resolve. Would she remain the daughter unwilling to step into the light, or could she rise as her father had? When the sun finally crested the horizon, it illuminated the kitchen, offering an unexpected burst of warmth. She knew she had a decision to make. The workshop loomed large in her mind, but this text, carrying echoes of her father's past, demanded attention. With a surge of determination, she pulled her phone from the counter and typed back, "I'd like to meet. When and where?" As she clicked send, a sense of liberation washed over her. For the first time in what felt like ages, she was taking control, not merely by responding to others, but by setting the terms of this conversation. The waiting game began anew, but it felt less claustrophobic than before. By the time her shift began at the diner, Ellie was agitated yet resolute. She took orders with a smile, her mind half on the chatter around her, half on what lay ahead. With each clink of coffee cups, she practiced in her head. She would claim her narrative, merging her father's values with her own vision for change. The diner buzzed with patrons, and she suddenly found herself in a familiar rhythm. But this time, she was more than just a listener. She was an observer, assessing responses and emotions. "You know," she said to a couple sitting at the counter, "what do you think about the changes in our neighborhood? The parks need more attention, don't you think?" The couple engaged, and Ellie realized how easily the conversation shifted toward general concerns, knitting together the importance of community spirit. Each response she received was a thread, reminding her of the collective voices that could be woven into her mission. Her heart thrummed with anticipation. Perhaps advocating for real change didn't have to feel monumental and solitary after all. As she wrapped up her shift, an unexpected text chimed in again. "Meet me at the old bakery on Main at 6. Important." A knot formed in her stomach. After all this time, what could be so vital? Just then, Lucas entered the diner, his face alight with the exuberance of childhood. He ran up to her, the world around them fading into the background. As she hugged him tightly, she felt grounded. This was her purpose. The conversation she was about to have, the fear of the past, it all felt secondary to what she needed to build for him. "Mom, can we go get ice cream after you're done?" Lucas's cheer shook her from her reverie. She nodded, but her heart continued to race, torn between her son's innocent joy and the impending clash of past memories. Tonight would unfold revelations. Her father's friend might hold keys to her family legacy, but would they unlock doors she had no desire to enter? With each hesitant step toward the old bakery, Ellie was preparing for more than a conversation. She was gearing up to confront the shadowy contours of her past. "Whatever happens next," she whispered to herself, a mantra of resolve taking root, "I can handle this." The door to the bakery creaked ominously as she pushed it open, the scent of nostalgia mixed with uncertainty flooding over her. What awaited her with this connection to her father? And in that moment, she still didn't know if she was reclaiming her identity or risking everything she had worked hard to become. Inside the bakery, a faint light flickered from above, casting warm shadows along the worn wooden counters. Ellie hesitated at the threshold, her heart thundering against her ribs as the events of the past swirled in her mind, battling each other like ghosts refusing to settle. Memories of her father filled her peripheral vision, intertwining with the scent of yeast and sugar. Yet she clenched her fists and stepped inside, determined to confront whatever awaited her. The friend of her father, a graying man with a warm smile that reminded her too much of familiar characteristics, sat alone at a corner table. He glanced up as she approached, his eyes twinkling with acknowledgement, but softened with concern, a complex mix she wasn't sure how to interpret. "Ellie," he said, his voice rich with familiarity and history, "thank you for coming." She slid into the seat opposite him, striving to maintain her composure, though internally every nerve in her body screamed with caution. "What did you want to discuss?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with an edge. "Your father was proud of you, you know," he began, and she braced herself as old emotions cascaded like an unexpected weight crashing around her. He believed in your potential. He always spoke of you with such admiration. Ellie's resolve wavered momentarily, and she was almost transported back to the moments of validation that had been her lifeline. But she pushed the sentiment aside, unwilling to dwell in nostalgia. "What do you want from me?" she pressed, cutting to the chase. He folded his hands, his gaze unwavering. "I have something he wanted you to have. It's a collection of his work, his notes, his dreams of what he hoped you would achieve." Ellie's throat constricted, her pulse quickening. The offer felt like an invitation into a realm she had fought to distance herself from. "Why, now?" she questioned, heart pounding, unable to shake the trepidation now swirling inside her gut. "Because I believe you are ready," he replied, genuine sincerity in his expression. "You're on the brink of creating something impactful, aren't you? Your plans for the neighborhood have the potential to change lives. Your father would want you to embrace that." His words penetrated the armor she wore. Sparkles of doubt mingled with fragile hope, ignited the possibility that this could be the bridge needed to combine her struggle and her legacy. But would this venture uproot the delicate balance she fought to maintain? She took a deep breath, allowing her thoughts to swirl in clarity. "I haven't done anything yet. Your faith in me feels misplaced." "Not at all. You're already doing it, even if you can't see it," he said, leaning forward. "It's time to own who you are, Ellie, not just as your father's daughter, but as an individual who can redefine what his legacy means in today's world." His words stirred something inside her. The idea of forging her path, of stepping into the shoes her father once filled, began to resonate. The truth stayed hidden, but was now craving illumination, her voice, her vision. "Will you trust me to help you after all this time?" he asked, breaking through her stormy thoughts. "To share his work, guide you in whatever way you will need? You are not alone in this." A poignant silence enveloped them, pain and possibility colliding in a delicate balance. Could she accept the invitation to explore her father's past while crafting her future? Could she truly be ready to claim her destiny? With a firm resolve grounding her, Ellie gathered the pieces of herself that had always been scattered in fear. "All right," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "But this is my story. I need to define it on my terms." He smiled, a proud glimmer dancing in his eyes. "That's the spirit of a true legacy." As the conversation moved deeper, a renewed energy flooded through her, tools of her father's vision slowly converging with her own aspirations. But as the minutes ebbed away, doubt still lingered. It was impossible to ignore the haunting specter of her past regrets. Was she preparing to shine, or merely masking herself behind someone else's shadow? As they talked about her father's ideals, a heavy sensation washed over Ellie, filled with apprehension for the choices she had to make. The bakery door swung open with a jangle, breaking the tension. Lucas appeared, wide-eyed and joyful. The urge to protect her son from the looming revelations ignited a protective instinct. Suddenly, she faced the intertwining of her dual responsibilities. Would she be able to navigate her new mission without sacrificing the comfort and joy of motherhood? With Lucas looking toward her, full of innocent expectations, Ellie realized the stakes had transformed. This was not just about erasing her father's shadow. This was about facing her fears of failure in the name of embracing who she truly aspired to be. It was time to confront not just her father's legacy, but the legacy she would create for Lucas. "Have you thought about what really matters to you, Ellie?" She could almost hear her father's voice echoing again, challenging her to rise. Her choice stood before her, stark and demanding. And as she looked into Lucas's hopeful eyes, she understood that her journey was far from finished. The next hour would shape the narrative of her future, and this pivotal moment would redefine the paths she and her son would follow. What existed beyond this threshold of her father's past? With the clock ticking, Ellie prepared to embrace the uncertain future that awaited. Ellie's mind swirled with the weight of her decision as she held Lucas's gaze. The walls of the bakery seemed to close in, the rustic decorations now feeling like a cage made of her father's past. She thought about the notes and dreams her father had left. In that moment, the flickering light above felt like a metaphor for her life, brilliant yet unstable, illuminating both potential and doubt. "Mommy, can we get some cookies?" Lucas's innocent plea cut through her turmoil, pulling her back into the present. His eyes sparkled with excitement, a harsh contrast to the storm brewing within. "Of course, sweetheart," she managed to respond, a smile dimly lighting her features even as anxiety tangled in her chest. The spontaneous request seemed both simple and laden with meaning. How could she delight in cookies knowing the burden of legacy now rested on her shoulders? As she moved to the counter, the years spent away from this place floated into her consciousness, each moment overlapping like a fading tapestry. She gathered the ingredients for a special batch, the ones her father used to make when he wanted to share joy. Lucas babbled happily about flavors and sprinkles as she scooped flour and sugar together, yet within her, an internal dialogue raged on. How could she expand her father's legacy into something new while ensuring Lucas didn't bear the same weight she had? She struggled with the duality of preserving familial ties and honoring her own aspirations. The fear of becoming a mere continuation of her father's story gnawed at her resolve. With each measure, she considered the launch of her own venture. Would these cookies serve as a bridge between her past and the future she envisioned? A future marked not by shadows, but by light. Lucas, seeing the dough take shape, tugged at her apron. "Can I help?" he asked, eager to play a part in what unfolded. "Absolutely," she replied, her heart warming at his eagerness. This moment, his laughter, their shared tasks, reminded her why she had to confront the pressure of her father's expectations. It was not just about facing the past, it was about shaping tomorrow. She handed him a small wooden spoon, a gesture infused with hope. As they mixed the ingredients, Ellie found herself smiling genuinely for the first time that day. Could she meld her father's ambition with her passion for creating something truly hers? Navigating this thin line felt daunting. The stirrings of an idea began to surface, one that involved not just cookies, but community. What if she could create a space, a bakery forged not just from her father's memories, but also enriched by her vision? The thought excited her, each flicker of inspiration igniting a fire within. "Mommy, can we add chocolate chips?" Lucas asked, interrupting her thoughts once more, pulling her focus directly back to simpler pleasures. "Of course, life needs chocolate chips," she replied, her spirits lifting. But as they folded the chocolate into the dough, the reality of her dual responsibilities loomed large. Would this bakery reflect the thrill of new beginnings, or end up drowning in the weight of expectations? Once the dough was ready, they placed it on a tray, ready to bake. Ellie stepped back, absorbing the moment. They were creating something delicious together, a blend of past joys and future possibilities. Yet that same specter of doubt returned. She wanted this venture to symbolize a fresh start, yet what if she only succeeded in repeating her father's mistakes? Lucas turned, wide-eyed. "Can I help tell the stories, like what you said about Grandpa?" Her heart tightened. Those stories were essential, but she couldn't let them consume her. "We'll tell our stories, sweetheart," she reassured him, "but they'll be our own. You'll have your own tales to share." With baking time underway, Ellie found herself at a crossroads. The aroma of cookies swirled around them, but the scent of fear and doubt lingered. She had a chance to shape something meaningful, to evolve into the person she had always wanted to be, but she needed to take action. What steps would she take next? How would she translate her passion into reality without letting the past dictate her path? As the cookies baked, a subtle determination began to take residence within her. Ellie felt the heartbeat of a new chapter beginning, one that melded her desires with the love for her son. It would require courage to face the unknown, yet she felt ready. "Mommy, it smells so good!" "Lucas!" exclaimed, pulling her out of her thoughts yet again. "Yes, it does," she smiled, hoping the sweet scent would linger. Still, the weight of her father's legacy remained, fusing into her resolve. With her son by her side, she was on the brink of something bold and transformative. And then again, a sudden thought struck her. What if she weren't the only one confronting their past? Could her venture inspire others in the community facing similar struggles to blend their histories into new beginnings? As her heart raced with this flood of ideas, Ellie understood that her journey was evolving, but with each idea came a flurry of unanswered questions. What secrets would she uncover about her father's past that could empower her growth? How far was she willing to explore this path, knowing that each step could lead to vulnerability and strength? With the oven timer counting down the seconds, Ellie took a deep breath, ready to embrace the unfolding journey. The timer chimed, cascading through the bakery, a clarion call that jolted Ellie from her spiraling thoughts. The sweet scent of cookies enveloped her, a reverie of hope intertwined with the remnants of uncertainty. As she opened the oven, warmth radiated against her skin, just like the sense of purpose starting to grow within her. "Look, Mommy!" Lucas squealed, his small hands clapping in delight as she pulled the golden brown cookies out onto the cooling rack. Each one was a small masterpiece, glistening and inviting. But beneath the surface, Ellie felt the weight of a bigger canvas awaiting her artistry. This kitchen could symbolize something more than what her father had built. It could be the foundation of her dreams, sweetened by possibility but spiced with the reality of responsibility. As Lucas drooled over the treats, Ellie pondered the essence of her venture. Would it be merely a bakery, or could it weave a tapestry of stories, intertwining the past with future ambitions? Her heart raced with the potential of brimming creativity, giving voice to her identity. She was no longer just her father's daughter. She was Ellie, an individual with a vision. "Can we bake those again tomorrow?" Lucas asked, his eyes wide and filled with bliss. "I love cookies." "Yes, we can," she assured him. Each cookie they made handed her the chance to sculpt not just baked goods, but to shape memories that were enriched with laughter, joy, and love. However, mingled with that joy was a creeping uncertainty. Each sweet morsel tasted of nostalgia and regret. Could she really carve a new path, allowing her father's culinary legacy to inspire rather than stifle? Were her dreams substantial enough to rewrite expectations as she ventured into the unknown? With determination blooming inside her, she swept up the existing chaos, the flour dust, the scattered chocolate chips, and began to mentally sketch the outline of her bakery. It would be a warm space filled with not just pastries, but stories, where each cookie served could evoke laughter, connection, and healing. Maybe she could host bake-off nights where she'd encourage local talents in culinary arts, just as she'd once dreamt of being nurtured in the kitchen by her father. Suddenly, she felt a surge of emotion. The bakery could become a hub for individuals seeking to explore their own familial legacies through the joy of baking, to tell their stories between dough and frosting. They could share how their parents gave them that one specific recipe, how it connected generations underneath the common thread of flour and sugar. Just then, Lucas pulled at her apron again, eyes brimming with curiosity. "Will you teach me how to make them someday?" "Absolutely, my love," she replied, her heart swelling. "But what about the stories of the customers she might attract? Would they be willing to open up and share the burdens that shaped their identities?" Ellie stood still for a moment, taking in the potential for her bakery to become more than a business. She envisioned it bustling with laughter and conversations, a lively chatter that might breathe fresh air into the weight of past expectations. The realization was suddenly tangible. She couldn't simply avoid her father's legacy. She needed to re-evaluate its meaning in her life. This space could champion authenticity, the rebellion against mere replication of past glories. "Can we start our own family recipe book?" Lucas piped up, breaking her thoughts again. His innocent question danced in her mind with possibility. A family recipe book, a means to document their shared journey, a bridge where each recipe emerged not just from her father's hands, but also from theirs. "Lucas, that's a fantastic idea," she exclaimed, his excitement fueling her own. "We'll create our own legacy while honoring Grandpa's." But even as enthusiasm wrapped around her, doubt lurked like a shadow. The dialogue inside her skirmished between excitement and fear. What if their recipes never resonate with the community? What if her voice was drowned out amidst the noise of expectation? Resilience wavered, and she felt the old familiar ache of doubt. But she reminded herself that she had the opportunity to engage in this dialogue not just with herself, but with Lucas and the wider world. Each recipe could serve not just to connect, but to transform, and the kitchen would become a sanctuary. Ellie pushed those fears aside, determined to harness them as fuel rather than chains. As the last cookie cooled, she resolved to research local pastries, to connect with her community and learn their narratives. It was time to embrace authenticity, to find the courage in vulnerability, and not navigate the past in isolation. The sun started to dip, painting the bakery with hues of warmth, and she felt alive with purpose for the next step. Maybe there were stories hidden just beyond the horizon of her comfort zone, stories that held the potential to shift her perception not just of her father, but of herself. Stepping outside, she drew a deep breath. The air felt charged with the possibilities ahead. Tomorrow, she would begin reaching out, beginning this journey of transformation through baked goods and shared legacies. But would the community embrace her venture, or would they hold on to past memories, longing for what had been? It was a risk she was willing to take. With each passing moment, the excitement built. Ellie was about to embark on a journey of seeking connection, even if it meant confronting tough realities and fears. Where would that journey lead her? Would she find kindred spirits in the community ready to forge new beginnings alongside her? Ellie awoke the next morning, sunlight streaming through the bakery windows, illuminating the flour dust dancing in the air. With renewed resolve, she began her day by flipping open her old recipe notebook. She was filled with a burning desire to create something authentic, a testament not just to her father's legacy, but also to her own individuality. Sitting at the worn wooden table, she pored over the pages filled with family recipes, each one a fragment of history, each one attached to a memory. They were like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that were ready to be reconfigured into something new. As she scribbled notes, excitement buzzed within her. She envisioned unique variations on classic recipes, infusing them with her own flair. However, every outline of a new idea was accompanied by the echoes of doubt. Would deviations from her father's techniques be seen as innovative or disrespectful? Ellie wrestled with this inner conflict, the tug between preserving tradition and asserting her own creativity. Deciding to quell that uncertainty, she resolved to set aside time each day for experimentation. Each batch of cookies would symbolize a step into her journey, a chance to connect not only with the flavors, but with herself. It was time for her voice to rise above the noise. Determined to extend her reach beyond the kitchen walls, Ellie planned a community bake-off, hoping local bakers would join her. She envisioned a collaborative environment where ideas could blend together, where stories could transform into confections. But as her heart raced with ambition, the weight of inexperience crept back in. What if the event failed? Would her efforts to bring people together only highlight her shortcomings? Taking a deep breath, Ellie thought of Lucas's genuine enthusiasm for baking. His innocent excitement sparked something in her, an understanding that, like a recipe, failure could simply be an ingredient for growth. In that moment, she recognized that vulnerability wasn't a weakness. It was a path to connection and authenticity. With a new focus, she reached out to local groups, sending emails and posting social media messages, inviting others to share their recipes and stories for the bake-off. The thrill of fostering connection emerged as a driving force. Instead of dwelling on her fears, Ellie acknowledged the leap of faith she was taking. She was not just inviting people to bake, she was inviting them to belong and to share. Days passed slowly, marred by the chilling vulnerability of waiting. The cravings of self-doubt lurked. Would anyone participate? What if only a few strangers showed up, or worse, nobody at all? Each notification that pinged on her phone became a moment of self-inquisition. Was it support or silence? While preparing for eventuality, she busied herself in the kitchen, drafting additional cookie creations that merged flavors with memories. Each iteration deepened her understanding of her father's influence, allowing her to reflect on how his teachings could serve as a springboard rather than a constraint. As she prepared for the event, the initial sense of dread began to dissipate, replaced by a simmering excitement. She even began to approach other local bakers, asking if they would display their specialties at the bake-off. Each conversation opened another door, revealing untold stories and flavors from within their lives. Finally, the day approached. The bakery had transformed in anticipation. The aroma of fresh-baked goods and the sound of laughter echoed as Ellie made last-minute tweaks, an exhilarating rush cascading through her. But moments before the bake-off commenced, a nagging thought assaulted her. Had she overshot her expectations? Was she asking for too much? Whatever the outcome, she concluded, she'd already achieved a fundamental shift inside herself. She had taken the plunge and stepped beyond the confines of her fears to invite others on this journey. This was her story, her legacy, intertwined with those surrounding her, and it was time to let it unfold. Standing at the entrance of her bakery as people began to arrive, her heart raced. Would they embrace the merging of histories through baking? Would her efforts to share, connect, and create resonate? The moment had arrived. Her heart pounded in her chest as she saw familiar faces and new ones approach, one question echoing in her mind. Would they identify with her journey or seek to cling to the past? Outside, the air hummed with potential, and she braced herself for what was to come. Ellie stood in the doorway, her pulse quickening as the first waves of participants descended upon her bakery. The moment swelled with possibilities, yet beneath the surface lurked a roiling tension of uncertainty. She scanned the crowd. There was Lucas, his eyes wide with wonder. Mrs. Thornton, the local pastry queen, who brought a tray of her famous eclairs. And even a few newcomers, curious expressions plastered across their faces, suggesting both intrigue and hesitation. The atmosphere thickened with excitement as they began to exchange recipes, stories floating like flour in the air. Yet as the din of laughter and chatter crescendoed, Ellie felt an echoing silence within herself. She asked herself, was she truly ready for this? Every moment spent in the kitchen had been a solitary experiment, a private exploration. Would the vulnerability of sharing her creations and her story reveal her strengths or expose her inexperience? As she stepped further into the bustling space, Ellie initiated conversations, listening intently to the tales woven with each shared recipe. It struck her that every creation had a history, carrying with it not just ingredients, but also dreams, failures, and triumphs. This realization brought her a strange comfort. In pursuing her own story, she found herself cradled within a tapestry of others' journeys. With each heartfelt anecdote, her initial nervousness ebbed. Lucas interrupted her thoughts, tugging at her sleeve, eager to share his chocolate chip cookie experiment. Watching him dive into the topic uninhibitedly, a spark ignited within her, a reminder of how much she loved the art of baking, not just as a solitary endeavor, but as a dialogue between souls. Together, they decided to showcase their respective creations side by side, merging influences. Inspired by Lucas's unrestrained creativity, Ellie took a leap of faith, adjusting her original recipes to complement his. She felt herself blending into something larger than her initial intentions. A feeling of hope enveloped her, breathing new life into her desire for acceptance. The bake-off spiraled into a continuous flow of tastes and textures, winners and learning experiences. Each participant contributed a slice of their essence. Mrs. Thornton offered a robust lemon tart that sparked conversations about bitter and sweet moments, while the younger bakers created playful twists on nostalgic childhood treats. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Ellie found a moment of solitude amidst the joyous chaos. She thought of her father's teachings. The culinary foundation he built for her was not meant to tether her. It was meant to empower her, to experiment, to explore. Through this community interaction, she realized that traditions weren't monolithic. They were adaptable, evolving with time and the people who cherished them. Yet just when she thought the evening's triumph had solidified her place among these bakers, Ellie overheard a whisper that made her stomach turn. Two older women were critiquing her cookie variations, dismissing them with an air of superiority, not traditional enough, and too fusion-focused. Their words cut deeper than she anticipated, rekindling old fears. Had she strayed too far from her roots? With her heart racing, Ellie confronted them internally, questioning whether her need for validation was worth so much. The undeniable truth of her artistry clashed with their rigid interpretations. Should she fight for her voice or bend to their expectations? The moment crystallized the tension within her, forcing a vital decision. Embrace the journey she had embarked upon, or tread back towards the safety of tradition. As she stood there contemplating her next move, she felt the pinnacle of her personal conflict. Would she relinquish her unique creations for the comfort of conformity? Or would she stake her claim, boldly defending her choices? As she prepared to respond to the women's dismissive remarks, Ellie's heart thudded loudly, apprehensive yet bravely ignited. The moment was here, and she would have to fight for her identity. What would she choose? Risk rejection or defend her newfound vision? The choice weighed heavily on her mind, and as she prepared to speak, silence enveloped her, bridging the gap between fear and empowerment. Unfolding further into her story was inevitable. The stakes had just risen. Ellie's heart raced as the whispers of critique echoed in her mind, a stark reminder of her insecurities. But in that heavy silence, she felt a shift within herself. The cacophony of laughter and excitement surrounding her became a protective shield, urging her to rise above the negativity that threatened to define her journey. "Excuse me," she interjected, her voice trembling yet steady, drawing the attention of the two women. "While I respect the techniques of traditional baking, I believe that creativity is just as essential. Each recipe can tell a new story, blending the past with the present." The room seemed to pause, anticipation hanging thick in the air. Ellie pressed on, conviction carving her stance into the atmosphere. Baking is a journey, one that evolves with each generation. My father taught me that recipes are not shackles, but vehicles for expression. Their expressions shifted from skepticism to curiosity, perhaps even respect. Savoring the moment, Ellie elaborated. "This bake-off is about more than cookies or eclairs. It's about sharing our diverse narratives and lifting each other up." A wave of support washed over her as several participants began nodding in agreement. Lucas beamed proudly at her side, eyes wide, absorbing the passion coursing through his mother. Suddenly, a woman from the back stepped forward, a soft smile on her face. "Ellie's right.
I came here reluctant to share my own twist on a family recipe. I was afraid it wouldn't be accepted, but everyone embraced it. Murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd, and Ellie felt a swell of hope wash over her. Before the harsh whispers could reply, Ellie seized the momentum. What if we create a collaborative recipe book, combining our unique perspectives? Every page could represent the intersection of ideas. The suggestion hung delicately in the air as surprise turned into a spark of excitement. A moment later, the older women exchanged glances, their expressions softening.
"If it's about community," one said, fidgeting with her apron, "we should honor contributions from everyone." Ellie welcomed their change of heart, understanding that vulnerability fostered dialogue and engagement. "I'd love that," she responded warmly. "Let's showcase how our differences can lead to something beautiful." Empowered by that small victory, Ellie felt the burden begin to lift. The community she had envisioned was taking shape right before her eyes. With each interaction, her confidence flourished. She was owning her journey, blending her narrative with those around her, forging a shared legacy. As the event continued, Ellie circulated, collecting recipes and stories, engaging with participants eager to share their own tales of baking. The energy in the room flourished, buzzing with creativity and connection. One by one, people began to contribute to the cookbook idea, marking each page with their personal histories wrapped within the warmth of flour and sugar. At the event's conclusion, Ellie felt a sense of solidarity and shared purpose as laughter resonated throughout the room. The community had indeed embraced her vision, confirming that her journey was one of transformation not just for herself, but for everyone involved. She had faced the shadow of her past and refused to be constrained, allowing each interaction to affirm her identity. When the last participant left, Ellie looked at Lucas, who was now clutching a handful of cookies and grinning ear to ear. The weight of doubt that had previously sat on her shoulders felt impossibly light. "Did you see that, Mommy? We did it!" "Yes, we did," she replied, swallowing back the tears of joy rising fresh on the edge of her emotions. Her heart swelled with pride, not just from this event, but from the culmination of her journey. She was no longer merely Ellie, the daughter. She had emerged as a leader, a creator, reintroducing her father's legacy in a fresh light, marrying it with her own visions of growth and change. And in this mosaic, she had built a future not only for herself, but for Lucas and the community surrounding her. As the event continued, she turned to face the bakery that had transformed from a place filled with uncertainty into a vibrant hub of connection, one where stories would intertwine with sugar and laughter, crafting not just pastries, but a new legacy. In that moment, Ellie understood. She had conquered her fears and insecurities and embodied her father's ideals of courage. Now she was ready to face whatever came next with solid confidence, a recognized competence solidified in her heart. This was her time, her voice, her story, and she was finally ready to share it with the world. With lingering excitement, she leaned down to Lucas. "Tomorrow we start planning our recipe book," she said, the prospect of creativity invigorating her spirit. "It's going to be amazing." And with that discussion between mother and son, Ellie knew there would be no turning back. Not only had she proven her worth to herself, but she had also accepted the challenge of creating a brighter future, filled with memories, resilience, and hope. This was not just a closing chapter, it was the opening of another exhilarating journey, one wrapped in possibility and drive. Now, more than ever, Ellie was ready to embrace the unknown, equipped with stories to tell, recipes to share, and a legacy forged on her own terms. If you enjoyed this journey alongside Ellie, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive stories of personal growth and triumph. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support.
Comment below your thoughts and reactions to Ellie's transformation. And for those who thrive on narratives of overcoming challenges, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who are ready to follow their own paths to success. This is the moment to show your support.